Thanks, Chandra. Thank you. Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to How to Create a Winning App Design, Design Foundation for App and SaaS Founders. So generally, this is a three-part series, and today we'll be looking at the core of app designs and how we can actually design products in a way that it actually becomes a winning product. My name is Vish. I lead the design chapter here at Appomate, and we we also have Zane, who is our product strategist, and we also have Amy on our call, who is our go-to-market strategist. So yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to post your questions in the chat here, and one of us will try and answer those questions as and when we can. But if you have any questions and as we go through the presentation, please feel free to interrupt me and ask the questions that you have. Cool. So here at Appomate, our vision is to make app entrepreneurship accessible. And how we are doing that right now is helping founders succeed faster and safer and smarter, right? So we are a full service digital partner, and we primarily focus on design and growth led app development. And since 2011, we have served over 100 clients, and we have built over 120 different products. And we have collected all of our learnings from there. Out of those 120 products, there were a lot of products that succeeded. There were a few products that failed. And we have collected all our learnings from all the products that we have helped. And that has what has given rise to this Design Foundation series. Now, what we want to do today is go through what is design, what is UX, and our approach to design using the Fog behavior model, the customer lifecycle, our core design principles. We'll also look at a case study, and I'll try and wrap up this in about 40 minutes so that we have some time for Q&A at the end as well. Cool. So what is UX, right? So UX is basically the full encompassing experience a user has when they start using your product, right? When they interact with your product, right from the very first touch point to the very final touch point. It prioritizes the user's needs, their preferences, their context, their challenges, and everything. I'll give you a very simple example why it's really important and relevant, right? So, as you know, everything can be designed in many different ways, right? Why UX become important is imagine you are designing an app, you are building an app where the context for the user is comfortably sitting on a couch when they are say at home or at work or and they can actually use both their hands to use the app, right? In such scenarios, the app can be designed in a way that even key actions could be at the top of the screen because the user can easily reach the top of the screen even on wide or big screen devices. But say if the user is traveling on a bus or a train, they're standing and they're holding the rails with one hand and they're using the phone with the other hand, then you'll need to take that into account and ensure that the key actions that the user might perform is at the bottom of the screen where the thumb can easily reach without the user facing the risk of dropping their phone or breaking their phone and things like that, right? So understanding the user's context and designing the experience in such a way that it becomes really relevant for the user's needs and their context and their preferences is what UX is all about. Now, why is UX important, right? So today we have about 1.8 million apps in the market on the App Store and 3.5 million apps on the Google Play Store. So altogether about 5.3 million apps, right? Which means every user has multiple different options. So to stand out from your competitors, the most important thing is having a differentiating experience that the users find really easy to use and really happy with, so that they prefer your products over your competitors. Now, can I ask whoever can actually, unmute your mic and share, the answer? What's the average retention rate for a product today in the market? Any guesses?
10%.
10%. That's that's okay. Any other guesses? Right?
I'd say probably like 1% or something.
Yeah, so 43% is basically the average retention rate, right? Or basically 43% of users abandon the apps after only one use, which means they use once and they don't use it ever again because they had such a bad experience. And out of the remaining, 71% of them churn within the first 90 days, which is they use the app for about 90 days max, and after 90 days, they're dropped off. And this is such a huge waste of time and effort and money, right? And can you actually guess how much it costs in Australia today to acquire a user or to get an install for your app on an average? Obviously, there are apps like Zero and Myo where it might cost, say, $150 to acquire because the customer lifetime value is higher and it's difficult to change over from one product to another. But there are also like social media applications where it's easy to change and all that. But what's the average cost? Any guesses?
$10.
$10? Yeah, it's about $5. So what the price of a coffee, right? So imagine this, right? So you pay $5 to acquire a user, and the user uses your app only once and stops using the app. Such a waste of money, right? And if we have a great user experience in the product and the app becomes sticky, then you can actually maximize the dollars you're spending on marketing. And whatever you spent in acquiring the users, that will not go to waste, right? So that's why UX becomes really, really important. But how do we actually design a good UX, right? So that would be the next question. So what we do here at Appmate is we actually follow what we call as the BJ Fogg behavior model, right? And this model is a model that is based on user psychology and user behavior, and was created by Professor BJ Fogg, who is a professor at Stanford. He created this model in 2007, and it's still relevant today, right? What it does is it talks about the relationship between motivation of the user and the ability to do something and the amount of prompting or persuasion that's required to get the user to take an action. If the user's motivation is really high, or if it is very easy to perform an action, then this model says that users will take the action without a lot of prompting. So be it getting the users to subscribe to your premium plans, or getting the user to make a purchase on your app, or getting the users to engage with an advertisement so that you can generate revenue, or getting the users to invite their friends, or whatever, right? Any key action. So if the user's motivation is really high, or if it is easy to do, you don't have to persuade the users a lot. But if the motivation is low, or if it becomes really difficult, then the user requires a lot of prompting and persuasion and push from the app to actually take an action. The best example of this is Amazon, right? So I'm sure most of you, if not all, would have used the Amazon shopping app to buy at least one product. So when you're looking at a product and you're making a decision whether to buy it or not, yes, you can add the products to your cart and make a purchase, right? But what Amazon did was they realized that by the time people added products to their cart and checked out, not everyone actually completed the checkout because their motivation levels dropped. Because when they're looking at the product, if it is, their motivation is really high and they feel like, yep, I want this product. But by the time they go to the cart, their motivation levels have gone down and they might try and think, do I really need this product? Should I buy it? Should I not buy it? And they saw that the amount of products that was added to the cart and the amount of products that was checked out was not matching, right? In order to generate revenue, right, and get people to buy the products, what Amazon did was they introduced that buy now button. So yes, you can add products to cart and checkout, but you can also buy products with a single click by clicking on buy now, so that they are actually making it really easy for you to purchase the product when your motivation is really high, so that you may even buy the products that you may not need, right? So that's the best example of using this behavior model in designing your product in such a way that it is maximized for conversions. So when we look at the whole customer lifecycle, right? The customer lifecycle is someone becomes aware of your product. They know that your product exists in the market. They download your app and become a user, and that's acquisition. Activation is when the user experiences the value out of your app for the very first time. So that's activation. And they're generating some sort of a revenue for the business, be it subscriptions, ads, or any purchases or anything. And they become a retained customer. So they come back and use your app again and again. Now, the problem with this lifecycle model or this funnel is you are actually spending your marketing dollars for every user you're acquiring. Right? And that's, as we saw, is a costly affair, right? So if you want to acquire 10,000 users, you have to spend $50,000, which is really, really expensive and may not be always feasible for startups and businesses that are trying to bootstrap or trying to get traction. So there is this concept of product-led growth where it actually completes the circle, where every user you acquire can bring in multiple other users so that your product can actually grow without you having to spending marketing dollars for every user you acquire, right? So the product itself is promoting itself, selling itself, and growing itself, right? So that's the whole point of a product-led growth customer lifecycle. Now, if throughout the app design, we'll actually talk about this in detail in our next session, but throughout the app design, being conscious of how we can actually place these product-led growth mechanics so that the product can sell itself, grow itself, and bring in more users uh, and maximize your marketing budget is really, really important. Now, with that, going to our core design principles here at Appomate, the very first one is putting users first, right? So generally, when we approach a new product design or a new project, what we do is we try and understand the user's needs, their wants, and motivations so that we can actually design the product in such a way that it resonates with their needs and it makes the app sticky. We use a framework called Jobs to be Done framework to analyze the user's needs, to understand what other products they're using in the mix, what is the ecosystem we are playing in, what are the other alternatives in the market, and how we can differentiate ourselves. And then we use user testing to understand the resonance and get the feedback for the designs that we have done and any changes that we may have to do for the product to be sticky for the users, right? Now, in our future sessions, we'll actually go deep into the jobs to be done framework as well. But for today's session, we'll look at a couple of examples that is a brilliant example of putting users first. Now, what you're seeing here is on the left is the Google homepage, and what you're seeing on the right is the Yahoo homepage, right? And Both are search engines. Now, why is Google more successful than Yahoo? Right? And if you look at one of the core reasons there, Yahoo, yes, they have a search bar similar to Google, but they also have a lot of other information on the homepage, which is distracting the user. Right? But when you look at Google, Google has just the key search bar, and Google really understood what is the key job that the customer is trying to accomplish. Right? So when you're going to a search engine, the key job that you're trying to accomplish is searching for something, right? So they removed all the distractions, focused purely on the key job that the user wanted to complete, and they provided the mechanisms for that. As a result, Google became more sticky and people were more successful in getting their job done and had a great experience. And yeah, Google won a bigger market share than Yahoo, as we all know. So yeah, putting users first is one of our key design principles, and that's what we always start our designs with. The second design principle we follow here is minimizing the user effort, which is basically focusing on the usability of the things and ensuring that the product is easy to navigate, easy to use, and reducing the user's frustration. And this all goes back to the fog behavior model that we saw just before, because if it becomes really easy to use, people will take actions without we having to prompt the user a lot, right? And nowadays we are all trained to expect immediate results. People's attention span is reducing. So even if the page load time goes from 1 second to 10 seconds, the probability of a visitor leaving the site and bouncing off increases by 123%, right? And this is based on Google and SaaS research. And because of all the short form of content and everything, users focus and attention span is continuously reducing, right? So it's really important for us to minimize user effort. Looking at a few examples of how other products have done that, we already spoke about Amazon and how Amazon has this buy now button where you can immediately buy something with a single click. But even if you look at YouTube, right, YouTube does this really well as well. Now, if you're watching a video, after your video ends, you actually don't need to do anything. You just need to continue watching YouTube and it will automatically start playing the next video based on your preference and what it feels you might enjoy. Yes, you can change the video if you're not liking the video, but the algorithm takes that into account, and the next time your video ends, it tries and brings in another video which it thinks might better suit your preference, right? So thereby, even selecting a video, the user doesn't need to do that action anymore. So it's reduced that user effort that much. And as we know, YouTube's become such a household name now, and I don't think there's anyone who hasn't uh, used YouTube before now. There's another app which does the same thing in a really nice way. This app is called InShots. This is not in the Australian market at the moment. This is mainly in the Asian market. But what they do is, again, they are a news app. Now, as you know, newspapers have almost disappeared. News apps are also struggling to gain traction and retain users. It's because people don't have the time or the attention span to read the news, right? So what InShots does is it reduces the user's effort in consuming the news, where it consolidates or compresses the news articles into 60 words, just 60 words, right? Which means it takes you about a minute to read the news. It's very easy to read it. So when you read it, if you feel that you need to know more information about that news, it provides an easy way to go and read the full article. If not, you can change it and keep going. And it's one of the leading news delivery applications in the market in South Asia, actually. And the common factor between all these three apps, right, YouTube, Amazon, and InShots, is reducing the user effort and making it stupidly easy for everyone to use the app so that it becomes sticky and people will continue to use it without dropping off. Prioritizing adding value over features. Actually, before we go there, uh, are there any other apps you have experienced which is really, really easy for you to use, and that has stood out for you, and you felt, oh, if this is so easy for me to use, I would probably not use anything else apart from this. Any apps that you have used that's that easy? We have a silent bunch today.
This is the Facebook.
Facebook, yeah. What did you find most easy about it? All right, we'll keep going. Prioritizing adding value over features. This is important in multiple dimensions, more on UX and faster execution. Like we said, our mission here at Appomate is to help our founders succeed faster and safer. And prioritizing value over features also helps people succeed faster, right? As well as giving a great experience. Now, users seek valuable experience and not all the overloaded features where users may not use it. So design should actually focus on adding value rather than showing all the bells and whistles, like we saw with Yahoo, reducing distractions and helping users focus on the core job that they are trying to do. And what we have seen is websites with high cognitive load experience about 38% increase in user abandonment. And apps with a simple and clear design experience, they have a 22% higher conversion rates than apps that have distracting user experience. Now, we already saw Google as an example for this, but I want to share another example here, which is not on the screen, but Instagram. I'm not sure how many of you know the history of Instagram, but I'm sure most of you would have used Instagram before. Instagram actually started as an app called Bourbon, right? And it was similar to Facebook. It had a functionality where you can post your status, you can check into locations, you can post videos, photos, you can chat with your friends, and you can write articles on it. So it was doing a lot of different things, right? And when Bourbon, or now Instagram, they started analyzing the data, they realized that most people just used one core functionality, which is sharing images with friends. So what they did was they actually removed all the other functionality and just kept the photo sharing. And within the first 6 months, they reached 1 million users, right? And that was a true testament to how you can actually reduce user effort and prioritizing just the value add over all the other nice to have features, right? And once they got traction with that core job that the users were trying to accomplish, then they slowly added the other features like chat and reels and all these things based on the user feedback. Going to the next one, which is data-driven decision making, right? Again, all the information, like I said, again with Instagram, the decision to remove all the distraction features, they were able to understand what is the core job and what is a distraction for the user based on the data. right? So data is your best friend. Now, design decisions, and for that matter, even business decisions, should not be just based on intuition. So utilizing both qualitative and quantitative data to validate the design vision will ensure the users get a really good value and prevent wasted resources in redoing the work or redesigning the product and all that. A study at Gartner found that 80% of the new products fail to achieve product market fit. So product market fit is the stage where the product that you have designed or built actually services a need in the market and gains traction, and users would start using the product without dropping off or abandoning the product. Now, Harvard Business School did a study some time ago and found that businesses that use data-driven decision making have 3 times more chances to achieve product market fit than the products that don't use data-driven decision making, right? And Bain and Company found that data-driven decision making can actually help businesses reduce the time to market fit by up to 50%. And as of today, the PMF time period is anywhere between 6 to 18 months. But imagine if you can actually reduce that by 50%, and instead of 18 months, you take 9 months, the product gets traction quickly and starts generating revenue sooner, so that you can actually focus on growing the business rather than trying to figure out why people are not using the product. Some of the best examples of this, right? I spoke about Instagram, how Instagram used data-driven decision making to go from or evolve from Bourbon to Instagram. The second one is Facebook. So Facebook, as you know, originally started as a social connection app for university students, and as they started analyzing the data, they were seeing that people were posting things for sale. They were trying to find buyers, they were trying to find sellers, uh, all that thing, and that's what led Facebook to introducing the marketplace functionality within Facebook. They also saw that people were trying to post videos, so they were posting links of videos from other video hosting applications, so they brought in the video functionality. And there's this very famous example where Mark Zuckerberg was in a party, and one of his friends and was talking about his crush, and he was wondering whether they're available, they're single, they're committed, or they're in a relationship or whatever. And he realized, okay, that's a cool data, and we don't have it on Facebook, and he added it, right? And that showed a spike in the usage as well. So listening to customers, both qualitative and quantitative data, and using data to make design decisions would actually help reach product market fit in an accelerated time frame. The next one is embracing product-led growth. So like we said before, product-led growth is the mechanics where the product can grow itself, sell itself, and bring in more users by itself, so that you don't have to spend market dollars for every individual users you acquire, right? Now, what it focuses on is personalizing the user experience and getting the user to the aha moment where they see the value in the app as quickly as possible, and as uh, with a great experience as possible, so that the user can then start referring it to their friends and family, right? 53% of buyers today would prefer to buy software without any interaction with sales at all. So if people don't want to be sold, but they want to buy. So having the product sell itself would be a great way to acquire those customers. The best example is Slack. Slack grew to 10 million daily active users in less than 2 years using product-led growth. So what Slack did was they had, as soon as you create a Slack account, it will say, hey, how about you invite your friends? right? And it's really easy to invite. You have to just put in their email address and Slack will take care of the rest. And it was a great hit. People started bringing in more users, right? And the other great example of this is Zoom. So Zoom used a freemium model. So they reduced the barrier to entry. You did not need to provide your credit card. You did not need to do a sign up or anything. You could start using Zoom simply by creating your account, and you can use it for 40 minutes. If you need it for if you needed a video conferencing software for more than 40 minutes, that's when they said, okay, you have to pay now. The other example is Dropbox, right? Dropbox again followed a freemium model where you got 1 GB of storage for free. And the way they use product-led growth here is fantastic, right? Because when you invite your friend, right, you and your friend will both get 500 MB of storage for free. Now, the incentive for inviting a friend or a family member to start using Dropbox is actually tied to the core value proposition of Dropbox. And that is something that the users find valuable because they're already using Dropbox, right? And tying the incentive to the core value proposition help them grow to about 500 million users, without them having to spending marketing dollars to acquiring every single individual user. In your experience with the other products that you have used before, have you seen any other products do anything like this where you have felt, oh, this is fantastic, I'll invite my friend or someone, and both my friend and I'll get an incentive? So any examples that might come to your mind? Nothing? Okay. The other one is aesthetics, right? And as we saw earlier, there's about 5.5 million apps in the market today. So every user has multiple different options. So it's really important to stand out from the competitors, right? And having a visually appealing and engaging user interface is no longer just a nice to have, because people will associate a bad experience or a bad interface with a bad product, right? So it's become like a table stake feature for people to have a visually appealing interface. Now, as per Data AI, apps with good aesthetics have a 70% higher retention. Consumers are 95% more likely to trust a product that has a visually appealing brand, right? And apps with a strong design can actually increase app purchases by 30% because it's increasing that trust within the product. And when people trust the product, they are more open to making a purchase or spending with the product. And in the Google Play Store, apps with a rating of 4.5 or higher for design are downloaded 250% more than those with a rating of 3.5 or lower, right? Think of ourselves. So when we are trying to download an app, we look at the reviews, we see what other people are saying, and we make our decision based on that. If people say, oh, this is not great, this is clunky to use and all that, we may not end up buying something. But if people are raving about how great it is to use and how beautiful it is, then our trust also goes up and we are more comfortable in buying it. So McKinsey and Co., they actually did a survey some time ago, and what they found was they actually call it as the design index. So companies with higher design index generated more revenue, and they also generated a higher return to all their shareholders. So if you look at the revenue, 3 to 6% was the annual revenue growth for other companies, but companies which had a higher design index score generated up to 10% annual growth in terms of revenue. In terms of the total return to the shareholders, Companies with a lower design index generated about 12 to 16% return to the shareholders, but companies with a good design index or higher design index score actually generated up to 21% in total returns to the shareholder. So aesthetics is not just a nice to have anymore. The final one that we target here at Affirmate is mobile first designs, because 57% of consumers will actually stop using a product if they have a poor design experience on mobile, right? And 85% of internet traffic today is via mobile devices. So mobile first designs could lead to 20% higher conversion rates compared to purely desktop experiences. And even if we look at our own usage, the amount of time we spend on our mobile devices compared to the amount of time we spend on our desktop devices, there's a huge difference there. So mobile first designs always prioritizes the user experience on smaller screens, ensuring that the interaction is seamless, the functionality works without a hitch, regardless of the device that you're using on. And it becomes a more accessible and more inclusive product, because mostly everyone have a mobile phone right now than a computer or a desktop device. The only exception to this rule would be if you are designing a product for a dedicated hardware like point of sale systems, right? Where people may not ever use it on a mobile device. They may just use it on a dedicated hardware which has a different screen dimension. So these are the design principles that we follow here at Affirmate. And these are some of the design principles that you can borrow as well and use in your own products to make sure that your products deliver a great user experience. Now, before I go into the case study, any questions on any of these? Cool. So the case study here today, I want to talk about this app called My Combat, right? So My Combat app is a comprehensive training aid for fighters who are, combat athletes who are training to participate in a competition or just trying to become better fighters. So what the app does is it allows you to input data from your training sessions, and the data will generate valuable insights for the athletes so that they can optimize their training, right? And they can also stay on top of their progress. They can see how they're progressing since the time they started their training. And they can also set the goal and say, okay, this is what I'm training for, and they can visualize the goal and achieve their training objectives, right? When My Combat initially came to Affirmate, they were initially intending to be a training management tool for mixed martial art gyms in New South Wales. Some of the problems that they were facing was low user engagement, low traction. The design was not that great. The product had technical issues. Although the core value of the product would have benefited both students and trainers, the usage of the app was underutilized and failed to convert users into paid customers, right? So when they came to us, the brief that the client gave us was, how can we address the app's shortcomings? How can we ensure that the app has a great user experience? And ultimately, how can we drive the user adoption and conversion and unlock the app's full potential, right? So this was the original homepage of the app. So as you can see, you have a button to log your training. You have a button to look at your well-being, injury, recovery, training, diary, teams, my competitions, my goals, all these things, okay? And this is how we redid the homepage. Now, the problem was the homepage, the original homepage, it was a static homepage with just a list of menu buttons. So every time the user opened the app, they would see the exact same thing. So there wasn't anything new, or it wasn't providing the user with any information. So if the user wanted to see an information, they had to perform a couple of steps before they could actually get value out of that. There was no product-led growth mechanics to make the user sticky. The app's UI was not that great, and there were a lot of features creating noise, right? So when we started analyzing the data, and we tried to understand what are the core jobs the users are trying to perform, and based on the understanding there, we actually redesigned the homepage and converted the homepage into a dynamic page where as soon as the user opens the app, they can see a summary of their training progress and their well-being, and they can see how they have been, how their workload has been the past 1 week or the past period in terms of the training. And we also improved the aesthetics to make it a bit more visual rather than the user having to read everything. So, and we also brought in a prominent record button to help the user add their training information. And we also brought in notifications to help the user, um, you know, or remind the user to add the notification and bring the user back to the app again and again to make the app sticky. And we actually removed a few features that had almost zero usage, like injury and recovery. That was not something that the users wanted to capture in their training diary. So all the users wanted to do was put in their training and information and get the insights rather than journaling. So we actually removed those couple of features, made it more visual, and as soon as we did that, right? So this is the kind of comparison that you could see even when you are inputting the training details. Originally, it was all in numbers and not visual. We changed it into a visual design so that it's easy for the user to use the app. And the result was we could see an immediate increase in the user conversion. Now the app has 100% 5-star rating on the Apple App Store. The business now has confidence to invest in marketing and further user acquisitions. And yeah, the users have more time for MMA training than just inputting the data. So by using our design principles and using all our learnings from the 120 different apps that we have built so far, we were able to help MyCombat become more successful and start seeing traction faster and safer. In our upcoming sessions, we'll be looking at product-led growth mechanics, seeing how we can bring in the PLG mechanics within your product, jobs to be done, framework, design elements, high converting design elements, and how you can actually collaborate with your extended team on Figma. With that, any questions? I think Brinda is typing something. So the question is, hi, I have an information tool. It is more education based, but should I leave the part that explains why our tool helps to the end? I show before tell. So my thoughts on that is, Brinda, it would be great to understand what the core job that your users are trying to complete or get done, right? And as they say, you don't buy a drill for the sake of the drill. You need a hole in the wall, right? So understanding why your users might use your product or what is the key job that they're trying to accomplish, that will help you sequence the information that you present to your users in a way that it actually resonates with them. The ideal situation would be you actually present the user the information at the right time when they have the highest motivation to receiving that information. So this will actually be dependent on the user's journey. Unfortunately, I can't actually give a yes or no answer here, but use the jobs to be done framework, right? Understand what are the key jobs the users are trying to perform and in what sequence, and you can actually sequence the information that you share with them in that exact same order.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, sorry. It's Britta. I just wanted to explain. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to teach people that the current models that are being used for their investments are actually not giving them the best outcomes. They're the wrong model. So it's not like the user has a job when they start because they've already got their investment model and then, pottering around thinking they've got the best option. We're trying to teach them that it's actually there's a problem with their model and we can correct it. So it's a little bit back to front, I know, but do you have any advice for how we would do that?
So would the user already know that they have a problem with their current investment model?
No.
Okay, so in that case, then it actually becomes more helpful for the user to know what your tool does. And
Yeah.
I would probably say the first step is for the users to figure out whether they have a problem with their investment model or not. So one of the things that your tool can do is help the users validate their current investment model, right? And based on that, if the users feel, oh, there's a problem here, then the next step your product can do is give them a solution and say, okay, now that you have realized you have a problem, this is what our product can do, and here is how you can do it.
To kind of flip it around, show them the.
Correct.
So, I mean, at the moment, it takes them through a journey that helps them understand some of the fundamentals that are different, and then they have to choose things they don't normally choose, and then that produces a result which shows them the difference between our model versus the current model. But should we just flip it around and say that, this is the difference between our model and, it's like a visual, you can see the return difference, and then they can unpack why after?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you need to know that people don't want to actually be told that their models are wrong. So it will be better for them to realize that by themselves. They can validate or test their own models by themselves using your tool, and then that would be the right motivation point. And if you can make it really easy for people to then adopt your tool to solve that problem, that would be the right balance between the motivation and ease of doing things, based on the fog behavior model. And then you can, like in your pitch, saying that use our product.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brinda. We have a question from Devini. Do you do app reviews to tell us where failures may happen or where there are opportunities that haven't been taken up? How do you add analytics to the user design so you can change your app over time other than feedback form and normal sale conversions and churns? Good question. So I'll answer your first question. Yes, we do. We do review apps, and we call it as the audit. So we audit the apps and try and figure out what the problems are. I'll get Amy or Bharat or Santa to share our contact information so you can reach out to us and we can help you with that. The second question is, how do you add analytics to the user design, right? So great question. So going back to the whole user journey that we saw, right? From awareness to acquisition, activation, revenue, retention, and referral, you will need to figure out what is core or what is important for your product at each stage of the journey, right? And then you set up analytics to measure those key things. Now, there is something called as information noise or data overload. So you don't want to measure everything so that your dashboard for analytics is riddled with noise and information that may not actually help you. So once you understand what would be the core or what would be very important at each stage of the journey, you pick and choose the top 3 metrics, and then you measure those metrics across the user journey. And then So think of it as a table, right? So you have the user's journey, you have the metrics that you want to track, and then you would have a strategy to grow your product or at each stage, how you can maximize the conversions. And then based on the metric and the strategy, you would build your tactics and the actions that you could potentially take to improve your metrics. So yes, data-driven decision making is not just based on direct form feedback from users always. It is actually based on analytics, your user feedback, social listening, interviews that you conduct, and all that. Awesome. Thank you. Actually, let me share our contact information. I think the best person to reach out would be Zain or myself. I've just posted our contact information here.
Yeah, so this Amy here, I'm one of the product strategists here. And to answer your question, Davini, yes, we absolutely do app reviews. We usually call that app store optimizations, where we look at all different things. It's kind of, think of it as SEO, but for your app store. And we do a very thorough audit and review on your onboarding process, your activations, and just depending on what your app, where it is, your goals, and where the drop-offs are, and where people are not converting. So I'll reach out to you after this and sort of give you a little bit more insight into what that process looks like. Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Yeah, no problem.
Any final questions before we wrap up? We have 2 more minutes. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to help you with that. With that, have a great rest of the day, and see you all in the next session. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Fish. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.